In 1969, humanity accomplished something that had never been done before. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin set foot on the moon, a monumental achievement that marked a new era in space exploration. The world watched in awe, but some people weren't convinced. They believed that the whole thing was a hoax staged by NASA. In today's video, we'll dive into one of the most famous conspiracy theories of all time. The theory that the Apollo 11 moon landing was faked. We'll break down the key arguments, explore where they come from, and see how experts have debunked them. Are we really living in a world where the moon landing never happened? Or is this just another piece of wild speculation? Let's find out. The idea that the moon landing was faked isn't something that popped up overnight. The roots of the theory can be traced back to the 1970s, just a few years after Apollo 11's historic flight. The theory gained traction through various books and documentaries that questioned the evidence presented by NASA. But perhaps the most famous proponent was Bill Kaysing, an author who in 1974 published We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion swindle. Kaysing argued that the United States didn't have the technology to land on the moon, claiming that the entire mission was staged in a film studio, designed to keep up with the space race and outdo the Soviet Union. From there, the theory snowballed, and what was once a fringe belief became a widespread conspiracy. Let's look at some of the core claims that conspiracy theorists argue prove the moon landing was faked. First up, the flag. If you've seen any footage from Apollo 11, you've probably noticed the American flag planted on the moon. Some conspiracy theorists point to the flag's apparent movement, suggesting that it must be blowing in the wind. But here's the problem. There's no wind on the moon, right? So how could the flag wave? Well, it didn't. The flag appears to ripple because of the way it was handled. Astronauts were trying to plant it into the lunar surface, and it caught some motion. In the vacuum of space, there's no atmosphere to stop it from moving as it's manipulated. The waving effect, it's just the fabric reacting to the motion, not wind. Another argument centers around the shadows in the photos. Critics claim that the way the shadows fall in the lunar photographs doesn't make sense. If the sun is the only light source, then why do the shadows seem to point in different directions? Some suggest that multiple light sources were used, meaning the photos were taken on a set. But when you dive into the physics, this actually makes sense. The moon's surface is uneven, so shadows will fall at different angles depending on the terrain. Furthermore, the lunar surface reflects light, especially from the sun, which can cause shadows to look softer or even distorted in places. The lighting isn't inconsistent, it's just the result of the moon's unique conditions. Another point raised by the conspiracy theorists is that there are no stars visible in the photos taken on the moon. They claim that, since the photos were taken in space, stars should be visible. So why aren't they? The truth? The cameras used during the Apollo missions were set to take high-contrast images of the astronauts, their equipment, and the lunar surface. The exposure settings were too short to capture the dim light of distant stars. The bright sunlight on the moon and the reflective surface of the lunar soil made it impossible for the stars to show up in the shots. One piece of evidence that's often overlooked by conspiracy theorists is the moon rocks. Apollo missions brought back over 800 pounds of lunar material, and scientists from around the world have studied these rocks. The consensus: they're unlike anything found on Earth. These rocks contain isotopes and textures that can only be explained by their exposure to the moon's environment. So if the moon landing was faked, how did they get these truly alien rocks? It's a tough question for the moon landing hoaxers to answer. Here's something that people often forget. The Apollo program wasn't just a US operation. The Soviets, who were in a bitter rivalry with the United States during the Cold War, had a highly advanced space program of their own. If the US had faked the landing, The Soviets, who had the resources and motivation, would have exposed the hoax in a heartbeat. The fact that the Soviets congratulated the US on the successful landing speaks volumes about its authenticity. So where does that leave us? While conspiracy theories can be entertaining, they don't hold up under scrutiny. The overwhelming evidence, scientific, photographic, and even geopolitical, proves that the moon landing was real. The Apollo 11 mission was a defining moment in human history, and we should celebrate the achievement instead of doubting it. And as fun as it is to speculate, let's remember, the truth is often stranger and more impressive than any theory we could dream up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the weird and wonderful world of conspiracy theories.